Hi, welcome to Tent Talk. This is the show all about the business of farmers markets. Whether you're a farmers market manager or a farmer or food producer selling at farmers markets, this is the podcast for you. On today's episode of Tent Talk, recorded live at the Washington State Farmers Market Association Conference in Tacoma, we talk with farmer Katie Green of Hare Organic Farm in the nearby Puyallup Valley. Katie will talk about what makes a great farmers market from the farmer's point of view and how she juggles markets, farming, a successful CSA program, and family life. I'm Catt White, Director of San Diego Markets, still an active farmers market manager, founder of Farmers Market Pros, and producer of Intense, the Farmers Market Conference. With Bridget back in San Diego minding the markets while I'm speaking at this conference, it's all me and our guests today. Welcome back to Tent Talk. So we're talking with Katie Green from Hare Organic Farm, right? In the Puyallup Valley?
Yes, right here in the valley.
Nice. And we're live from the Washington State Farmers Market Association Conference, which has been an amazing conference. And one of my favorite sessions so far was Katie and a couple of other farmers. It was a session on attracting and retaining vendors. And it was 3 local farmers and a room full of market managers who possibly have never talked to farmers before about why they're in markets and why they're not when you're trying to get a farmer in. So I thought it was a brilliant session. So have you ever done or seen this kind of session before?
No, not with that much of an open-ended space for conversation.
Yeah.
Certainly, serving on boards or having individual conversations with market management, you have the opportunity to talk about these things or chat amongst yourselves, but never in that quite size of a group. It was really, really nice.
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting. Do any of your markets have annual meetings or any kind of formal listening sessions?
Yeah, we do have annual meetings for multiple, and I think those are really fantastic opportunities to convey a lot of information and for vendors to get to know one another.
Right, that's more of what ours is. We manage markets in San Diego in addition to doing the podcast, and we have a big a meeting, or it's actually a party twice a year.
Yeah. It's brilliant. I mean, yes, of course, there's the business end of things that you have to discuss, but there is something to be said for that opportunity to know who you'll be working with. I mean, that lovely kind of balance of co-opetition is what I like to think of it with other vendors is nice. Knowing what other people do and ways that you can support each other. That's what the vendor meeting is also great for. And half the time they're potlucks, and you always get to taste some good stuff too.
Somebody was saying, how do you get all your farmers and vendors to come to a meeting? They're just tired afterwards, right? And I said, well, we serve beer and
yes, pizza. I think pizza is the universal language of love, right?
It is, right? They're tired, but they're hungry. Everybody wants to eat and relax a little bit before they go home, so it seems really effective. So you're in 3 markets, right? 3,
yes.
And one of them is the very large, busy, well-established University District market. That's a big market in Seattle, right?
Yes, it's big and it's wonderful and it's established, and we're very lucky to be vendors there.
How long have you been there?
We have actually been there now. This will be our 7th season.
Wow.
Yeah,
so a long time. Now, that's a year-round market, no?
It is a year-round market. We don't have the capacity to participate fully year-round yet, maybe someday. But for now, we balance it out with starting as early as we can in April and at least try to drive on the way through the Thanksgiving weekend in preparation. And then we give ourselves a couple of months to relax a little bit.
But the market puts a different farmer in, and then when you come back, there's still space for you?
We still apply and hope. I think, one of the nice things about Puget Sound is we all have different microclimates and things that we can work with, and there are certain growers that have product that they can work with through those months. We have the product ourselves, but because we also market through a CSA in the winter, we get a little bit more insular and stay closer to home in that way.
You said about 50% of your income is CSA, right?
Correct, yeah.
So do you take CSA to each of your farmers markets? Do CSA customers pick up at your markets?
We do for our market in Tacoma. So that is a weekday market. It's on a Thursday midday. So for a lot of people who work downtown, that's very convenient for them to scoop up their CSA share from us right there at the market. We haven't taken any to Seattle just because we don't have enough room on our truck.
Oh, gotcha.
Given the capacity there. For the biggest market, it would mean we'd need a much larger size vehicle.
Much larger truck, yeah.
And we hope to start bringing our shares to the market in Puyallup this year as well. So
nice.
In our kind of smaller hometown it's not smaller, it's a very large market.
Yeah, I've heard about Puyallup. That's big.
Smaller in terms of capacity for veggie vendors, but huge, wonderful community event that we have every week that I'm also very, very excited to be part of. So,
nice.
Yeah.
So the Tacoma Market's a little bit smaller, probably a little bit slower. I would guess you've got a really good reputation as a farm with the Seattle market managers. I would guess you could get into another kind of larger, longer established sort of market. What keeps you in a market that's still kind of finding its footing?
What I think is most important for us as farmers is we really focus on our locale. And we want to be members of our community that are feeding members of our immediate community. We are situated in such an amazing place as far as farms go. We are 10 minutes from a downtown area here in Tacoma, and 10 minutes in the other direction, we're in the suburbs in Puyallup. And we would be silly not to connect as easily as we do with our locals. Sure. And we want people to value not only our farm, but the farmland, that exists here in our county and the rich tradition that we have. So I think that, on one hand, that keeps our basis, in what it is that we value and who we want to serve. But without exposure through those local markets, I don't know that our CSA program would be as strong as it is.
Right.
And people support both. They support us both ways. And I love giving locals the opportunity to support us, in different ways, because people have different, preferences and schedules and lifestyles. And so meeting people, in as many ways as we can. Certainly, a day spent, in Seattle at the U District is going to be more financially lucrative for us. However, in the long run, I don't know that our farm would be as vibrant and as connected were we to not do our most
really
immediate
hyper-local.
Smaller markets.
So where do the folks in this area pick up your CSA if it's not at the market?
Do you
deliver?
Oh, we do.
Oh, you go to they go to the farm. Oh, that's a wonderful connection.
Again, with our proximity to the city.
Yeah.
And we're part of people's weekday habit, which is really unusual. I think, we have this assumption that people want to pick up on the weekend, on Saturdays, because that's when the market happens. And what's great is we have people that do. We have people that shop with us at the market on the weekend, but on their weekdays, on their lunch hour, or coming home from soccer practice or whatever, they're going to stop by the farm and grab some vegetables and fruit from us there.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so it balances it out really nicely for us.
Well, and it's got to make an even stronger connection between you and your CSA customers if they see the farm.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's one of the things about a CSA versus a farmer's market is you're not having as much contact with the farmer sometimes because it's just dropped at a remote point. But if they're picking it up from you, I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, and we have a wonderful kind of open farm policy is what I call it. If our farm stand is open or if CSA pickup is happening, we mean it. People can walk around and get fresh air and see the farm change over the seasons.
Nice.
We plant cut flowers for our share members to pick when they're coming out. So it's designed, with them in mind. I mean, it is their farm. It's our home, of course, for all of that time. But for, a big chunk of our week, we share it with others, and that's really important to us. So.
Oh, that's awesome.
And they wouldn't know we were there if we were not at the market, chances are. So it's nice to
so it's
be
good.
That reminder.
So you're good at the local one.
Yeah.
Do you, most of your markets, are you paying a flat fee or are you paying a percentage of your sales?
We pay a flat fee for our booth fees and then a percentage of our sales for the majority.
Now, when you have a CSA pickup at the market, do you pay a percentage of what people have paid for the CSA or no?
I've not been asked to at this point, and that's a really good question. I'd have to decide what to do.
Whether that was worth it or not.
Whether it was worth it, or do I pass that cost on to my customer?
Sure.
Luckily, I've been able to work with the management for them to see what it is that I do as an enhancement of bringing, traffic to the market.
Brings more traffic that might buy from other people, right?
Correct, and that's their way of helping me out. If it were to become a draw on their resources excessively, or if they felt the need to assess, a fee, I would certainly entertain that conversation. But luckily for us, that's been something that those managers have done to just support us as farmers, and something that keeps a farmer coming to their market.
That's terrific.
Yeah.
My organization charges a flat fee. We don't charge a percentage of sales, but I know some other markets in our area do charge a percentage, and then I know that at some of those markets has been kind of a bone of contention. They didn't want to do a CSA because people were picking that up instead of spending money somewhere that would generate a percentage.
Yep.
So, it's
and
that kind of attitude.
In our experience, when someone comes to pick up their CSA share from us at the market, I immediately watch them walk to other vendors' booths and fill out their box, and then they go down and they grab their lunch, and then they grab their bouquet of flowers, and they're completely loaded up with stuff from other
we
places.
love having CSA Pickups.
It makes
at our
sense.
markets.
It's not a deterrent. It doesn't actually take away. In fact, I think it really enhances.
So there's been a lot of talk about CSAs aren't as profitable as they used to be, or they're too much work compared to what they get. Do you use a system? Do you use Harvey or any of the automated stuff? Or?
I don't, and I used to. I think that website design and platform says that's become far more user-friendly, and particularly with merchant accounts and that sort of thing. And I have had to dive in and learn quite a bit.
Gotcha.
I used to use a system, and I used to pay for for people to be able to subscribe through my site in that way. The overhead was very expensive for a farm my size, and for the amount of people who were walking up to my farm and writing me a check at the counter.
Yeah.
I was having to turn around and pay a commission for that software. And so eventually I found a workaround, and that's what I prefer.
How do your folks get to customize their CSA, or is it just what's in the box is in the box?
What's in the box is in the box, and there are some add-ons that we, for salad mixes and eggs and artisan breads and that sort of thing. But no, because it's very simple and straightforward that way, it's manageable. And
it makes more sense to me. I mean, the other, I'm reading stuff that says, the farmers are going to need to customize what's in the box. Well, then that's not a CSA,
Correct.
right? I mean, isn't the whole point is that your customers are part of your family and your team that kind of takes the risk that some years will be really abundant and some seasons not so much so.
Yeah, and I love that world in which you have a group of people all taking home the same ingredients, and think of all the permutations of what they're doing at home.
It's like the one book program, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I that is part of it. And I don't think that, I'd be silly to think that every one of my customers is only getting their produce from us. Certainly it's not enough. You're supposed to be eating a lot more produce than that, people. So I think it's a nice, a CSA is a nice way of saying, I want to commit a certain number of my spending dollars already, by the season to this farm. And then it would be even better if those people turn around and also shop at their farmers markets and do the same thing. There are other options for people to customize deliveries, and those are rising rapidly, and those are proliferating like crazy. It's everywhere, and I get a lot of questions about that and how it compares with the CSA, and it's apples and oranges.
Absolutely.
And I don't think that. I think that the CSA model at its truest is far much more in line with what we'd be doing at the markets and as true farmers.
Yeah, I love the CSA thing.
Yep,
the whole delivery thing, that's actually why I'm here, is I'm speaking tomorrow about what's the difference.
Yeah.
So even really attuned people in the local food systems sometimes don't get the financial impact on a farmer from buying direct to them versus, I buy local at my Whole Foods. Not the same, folks. Not the same.
I have the best compliment that I get, and I still kind of blush when she says it. A dear friend of mine who I go and speak to her class up at one of the community colleges. She teaches there. She introduces me as her personal farmer.
Oh, I love
People
that.
Have personal trainers and personal this. I'm her personal farmer.
I like it.
And
everybody
really
should have a personal farmer.
Everybody should have a personal farmer. And you can if you join a CSA or if you shop at the farmer's market with regularity. I mean, but it's nice that means something.
Yeah.
Whereas, I just sign up for this service. It's different. It's different. It's not just a service. It's a life. Yeah.
So different. You said, actually, I love your word, by the way, co-opetition. I'm just going to put that on a shirt or something.
Do it.
It's awesome. You said something in the session about it's easier for you to do a market if you don't have to pay somebody to do it, because you don't have to pay yourself when you do it. We teach a lot of classes for farmers and vendors, and one of the main things we tell people is if you're figuring out what you're going to charge for your product, you've got to take the cost. Mm-hmm. And that includes paying yourself.
Oh, I know. I think I believe. I also said my logic is completely flawed, and that I'm just it's all a shell game. I'm totally deluding myself if I think that's true. But there is something to be said for us being the ones there doing the selling and doing the connecting. Sure. I mean, if you're at a farmer's market, what I always tell people, that's a good example. When I'm at that class, I tell these folks, I ask if they've been to the farmer's market that year, and a handful of students will raise their hand. And I said, well, here's the thing. If you're one of those people that feels uncomfortable, people who are working at farmer's market are there because they want to talk to you. Yeah. They want to connect with you. If they're the kind of person that doesn't want to talk to people, they're not going to last at a farmer's market. They're not going to be at a farmer's market very long. So it is an opportunity. Those people there want to connect with you. They want to share with you what it is that you can do with the produce that they've brought. They want to tell you how it was grown. They want They want to share in your enthusiasm for what you're going to do. And so I just think that's the whole missed opportunity. If I'm sitting at home, I'm not able to convey that in the same way.
Right.
I do think there's something to be said if someone is working on the farm as a staff member. Certainly, if they're invested in the growing, they can do the same thing too.
Yeah.
But I'll never hire someone just to be a market lackey.
Yeah, I've seen people do that, and then a lot of times I'll have farmers come back and say, "Oh, the market's been slower."
Yeah.
No, not really. But I know that the farmer themselves hasn't been there in a while, and it's just somebody that's not just. I mean, these are great people, but they're employing somebody just to do markets who isn't even picking or planting or any of those things. You're not going to sell as much because it's. I mean, the reason people come to farmers markets, it's not because it's easy to park. Right. It's not because it's easier to shop. They come because they want that relationship. They want their personal farmer.
Yeah.
And so a staff member, no matter how earnest they are, just isn't going to be exactly the same.
Or just somebody strictly doing sales.
Especially just sales, as
if
opposed to farming.
If they're the ones, that are there putting in the work on how to grow it and can tell you what it was like the day that they planted it.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
What it takes to actually go out and pick it. That's a farmer. Right. Yeah, absolutely. Whether it's the farm owner or not. And I do think that there's a bias for that too, and that staff person.
Well, everybody wants to talk to the big dog.
Yeah, everybody wants to. Don't we all want to speak to the manager? Right. But that's the best we can do, and I think it's a great learning opportunity for that that person to know how to market.
We've seen a lot of people who work for farmers that work at the markets, and those actually turn into new farmers. Sometimes it's really wonderful to see.
They better.
Yeah, right.
We need them.
We need them so badly. So if you don't pay yourself, do you at some stage of the game pay yourself on paper so that you can determine whether or not you're profitable?
Yep,
or
we are an LLC, so we are registered that way, and so our income passes through the farm itself.
Great.
And so yes, we are compensated,
yeah.
and yes, it's not that we're not paid, but if I am trying to choose where I'm spending my dollars as a farmer, right now it is far more lucrative for me to spend my dollars on someone else working in my field or in my propagation house or weeding or taking care of the animals than it is for me to exchange out that opportunity for
because the work's
going
to be equivalent.
Yeah,
right. It's going to get planted whether you do it or somebody else, but it's not necessarily going to sell as much whether it's you or someone else.
And my spouse and I, we're both really good at markets.
Yeah.
People want us there and we want to be there. And it gets us off of our farm.
Yeah.
For selfish reasons, that's why too. I mean, it gets us out of the house.
How old is your little one?
Our daughter's now 9 years old.
So does she work at the market?
You bet.
All right.
Yeah, it's the best thing. She started coming a couple of years ago with my husband. It's busy enough in Seattle to where she doesn't get bored.
Right.
Which is great. So that's been good for them to do together. But then, the flip side of that is before she was old enough to do that, every Friday night she spent with grandparents because she had parents who had to get up the next morning, load up vans, and leave.
Well, that's not a horrible thing either.
Oh, it's great.
That's
She's got
awesome.
good grandparents.
That's good.
But yeah.
Okay, last question, I think, and we'll let you go. You mentioned in the session that it's important to you that markets do the work, find the funding, figure out how to deal with all the logistics, and if you're a farmer's market manager and you're listening, you know that the logistics are not easy. The USDA doesn't make it easy for farmers markets, but nonetheless, that you want to see market managers do the work to offer EBT and FMNP and those kind of things. So everybody knows that's a good thing in terms of food equity and getting fresh food to people that have lower incomes. But what I think I'm hearing you say is it's also good business, right?
It's great business. It particularly for a market that is smaller or might be serving a community that folks would otherwise be unrepresented as shoppers at the market. The more you give people the opportunity to shop your market, the better. I found that, for us here in Tacoma in particular, we've done a lot of work around food access and what those programs can do. And so not only am I seeing people shopping our markets for more frequently and putting their dollars there and being willing to use their EBT cards, being comfortable using their EBT cards, I'm seeing people extend longer into the season.
Oh,
and everybody knows, at least in our northern climate, that, it's going to be hot stuff June, July, August, but then what happens in September and October or beyond? And so in a lot of ways, I think that these programs really just kind of open up the spending power for the year. People who have a farmers market nutrition program check that doesn't expire until the fall are going to continue coming to the market until the fall. They might be buying crops that are intended for storage and that will last them longer into the winter. And so I think those foods tend to last longer than summer foods, and therefore the consumer gets more out of it. I then also have an opportunity to keep my market sales up. And it's kind of make or break for smaller markets for me at this point. If those programs vanish, it's going to be a huge hit for me, particularly in Tacoma. Without those types of funding, it would cut off a huge, or at least not a huge, but definitely a really important part of our sales. So
notable
it
part.
Goes directly to eaters and farmers.
Right.
That's what those funds do. It's not that it's being spent on anything other than food. So it helps the farmer, it helps the consumer that needs it.
It's terrific.
It's basic, it's awesome.
Right. It's so important to keep those folks with EBT and SNAP able to shop for healthy foods.
Yeah. And a lot of folks are senior citizens. This is the other, piece that, that it's not just, young moms, who are out there trying to make it work. These are a lot of people that we serve in our community are elderly and don't have necessarily the amount of care, or someone else to be taking care of them, but they're trying to take care of their health in other ways.
Right.
And it's socially very good for them. And, the mental health piece that, and the role that getting out to a farmer's market and being outside and interacting with others, there are other little bits and pieces, too, that have nothing to do with the exchange of that actual, currency or script. It has to do with the emotional currency that's going on, too.
Yeah, absolutely, because isolation is such a problem with the older folks sometimes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So is there one last thing that you'd like to make sure that market managers know about how farmers look at farmers markets?
We are so thankful for the work that is being done. Keep asking the questions. Keep, how do I put this? Keep attempting to do the right thing, and because we do recognize, what makes a good market is a market manager who is someone who is fair, who is enthusiastic, and we see you out there giving your all, and we're going to just respond in the same way if you're able to show us that good behavior too. Yeah.
Great to be part of one big productive team.
Exactly. We're all part of it together, and we're in it, and we understand it. And chances are, if you're struggling with something, a vendor is willing to help out.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's good. Thank you so much, Katie. It was a pleasure talking to you.
All right, everyone. Thanks for listening to this edition of Tent Talk. Please leave us a review on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you access your podcasts, and tell us how you're enjoying Tent Talk. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss the next episode. And if you want more farmers market tips, tricks, and information, you can subscribe to our weekly newsletter at farmersmarketpros.com and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Farmers Market Pros. This podcast is produced by Farmers Market Pros, where passion meets profit. Thanks to Adam Samaha and Justine Marzoni-Mead for being recording and editing wizards, and David Mead for your perfect original Tent Talk music. Thanks for listening.